What's up, my Yugi Bros? I'm your host, the one, the only, the RJB0. Welcome back to Decks and Techs Week. So one thing I've been noticing recently is that spell cards are extremely obnoxious. Not only because they are usable as soon as you get them, but also because they're often really powerful or integral cards to a deck, and they are tough to stop. A lot of the time a spell card, unless it's a, quip, field, or continuous spell card, is very difficult to stop. You can Vanity's Emptiness if it's a power spell that special summons, but other than that you have very little to work with. So I've been thinking a lot about spell negation because I think that spell negation could be really critical this format. And I came up with one card that I think I've seen played a few times but could probably be very effective in the coming format. And that card is Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell. There will be a description of how it works / just its effect type out in the description below. But the thing about Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell is not only does it negate the effect of any spell card, but it also destroys it and then blocks it from being used for the rest of the game. So if you negate, for instance, a Shadow Fusion, which is a really integral part of the Shadow deck, it turns off Shadow Fusion for the rest of the game. It is also awesome with Clifforts coming out, because Clifforts are all Pendulum monsters, and the thing about Pendulum monsters is they can be activated as spell cards, and if you Curse Seal the Forbidden Spell them, then they can't use their Pendulum effects anymore. Now that doesn't seem so hot until you realize that you can hit their Cliffort tool, and then the deck loses a ton of consistency because now they have 3 basically dead Summoner's Arts in their deck, unless they used one to get that Cliffort tool, and then they have the rest of their dead Cliffort tools, because really the only purpose of Cliffort tool is to be used for its effect, to search out more Clifforts, and they can't do that anymore if you Curse Seal the Forbidden Spell them. And that kind of goes for any Pendulum monster that you use. So if you hit like Trample Lynx or Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, then they can't use that monster's Pendulum effect for the rest of the game, and that is super cool. So I think that Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell has some really powerful applications. Now, one of the problems with Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell, in fact, the main problem to Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell, is its cost. You have to discard a spell card, and that isn't so great this format because not a lot of decks run a lot of spell cards. Spellbooks can do that very effectively. Fire Fist can do that fairly effectively. There will be decks that can do it, especially once the Hero Strike Structure deck comes out, because heroes are basically made out of spell cards. However, for the moment, there aren't a lot of decks that can do that. However, there are other spell negation cards out there. Now, there are 2 of them that are the really common examples that are actually pretty terrible. One is Dark Bribe, which negates a spell or trap card, but allows your opponent to draw a card, which basically means get rid of one of your opponent's resources to give them another resource at the cost of one of your resources. So that isn't very great. And Magic Drain is also usually given as an example, and Magic Drain is actually really terrible in my opinion, because it gives your opponent the option to discard a spell card from their hand, which is good against absolute noobs because they will freak out because they're like, I don't know, do they want me to discard the card, or do they want to negate the card? I really like this card in my hand, but it's really bad against bad players, because when you're negating a spell card, you want to negate a spell card that you want to negate. You don't want to give your opponent the option to choose a different card. And if you're playing against a good player, then they're going to know which card is the most important card, and they will get rid of that card instead. And if the card that they have in their hand is less important than the card that they're negating, which the card that you're negating should be the more important card because it's the card you're trying to negate, then they're just going to discard the card in your hand. So Magic Drain is really terrible. However, Magic Jammer is a pretty decent card, and I'll tell you why. It's because its cost of discarding a card from your hand is basically nothing this format, especially if you're playing something like Burning Abyss, because you can negate a spell card and then use your Burning Abyss monster's effect and you're good to go. You have 1-for-1 countered your opponent's spell card, which can be really amazing because even though there is a lot of trap negation around this format, the most popular form of trap negation is Trap Stun, and a lot of the time a player will not Trap Stun before they activate their power spell, because oftentimes a power spell is set up for their play that they want to Trap Stun for. For instance, if your opponent uses Rhoda, they're going to use the Rhoda before they activate Trap Stun, because if something happens to that play with their Rhoda, or you summon a monster or something like that, they want to make sure that they're making the right play before they activate their Trap Stun. They will activate the Trap Stun the majority of the time right before they summon their monster. And the same kind of goes for Shadow Fusion and things like that, because most of the trap cards this format are spell speed 2. They're normal spell cards, things like Phoenix Wing Wind Blast and Karma Cut. So your opponent is going to wait to make you go at minus to activate that trap stun, and then you can't use traps for the rest of the game. But if you use Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell, it is a counter trap card. So they can't respond to that, and the same goes for Magic Jammer. So even though there's a lot of trap negation in this format, your spell negation cards are spell speed 3, which their trap stuns cannot take care of. You may encounter a couple of wiretaps, but in my opinion it is entirely worth the cost to attempt to turn off Shadow Fusions or Cliffort tools for the rest of the game. I think that this card is freaking amazing, and I think it is a shame that it has not been used more often in the past. So that is my thought on spell card negation. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And of course, subscribe for more decks discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Meanwhile, I will see you guys at the 3.5 Access Fire Fist deck that I will be giving you guys tomorrow. And I got a jet. See ya.